Welcome to New Life Live with host and founder of New Life Ministries, Stephen Arterburn. For 35 years, New Life has been transforming lives one at a time thanks to the giving hearts of you, our listeners. Our goal is to provide you with wisdom from God's Word to give you hope and help in life's hardest places. If you have a question you'd like to ask today, our phone lines are open. Call 1-800-229-3000. That number again is 1-800-229-3000. Now here's Steve.
Welcome to New Life Live. So glad you're with us here today. When I say us, I mean Marc Cameron and Dr. Alice Benton. Hi, guys.
Hi.
And if you want to join us, if you wanted to talk, and we'd be glad to hear your comment or answer a question or look at your situation, it's 1-800-229-3000. 1-800-229-3000. Well, I was talking with the Public Broadcasting Corporation about doing a presentation, and it was all around the Mediterranean Love Plan. And they said this, they said, now the one thing you must not mention is sexual intimacy, because our audience does not want to hear about that or look at that. So I want to talk about that. Sexual intimacy is, it's a private thing, of course, and it's also very uneasy for some. It's easy for others to discuss. But guys, why is it important that we don't just ignore and accept nothing in the area of sexual intimacy?
If we allow nothing to exist for too long in our marriages, they will deteriorate and even have high likelihood of self-destructing over time. And it's so important for not just the health of the marriage, but the health of the family, because parents that are well connected protect their children from all sorts of unhealthy and delinquent behavior. So I would say it's actually of very high importance for the health of the whole family.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting topic to talk about. And lots of times people refer to, or as Christians will refer to sex as intimacy. But just because sex is within the context of marriage doesn't mean that it's intimacy. It can still be a non-relational event if we're not actually cultivating that depth in there. And I think intimacy is more than just the physical act, right? We have emotional intimacy, we have spiritual intimacy, we have intellectual intimacy. And oftentimes I like to explain it in the metaphor of like a car, right? Physical intimacy is like the engine. We get revved up, but that doesn't really go very much unless you have gas in the engine, right? And that's really the emotional intimacy. And then spiritual intimacy is like the wheels, right? The wheels are equal distance apart. They have to move together, right? But they're grounded to the road, and that's like us being grounded to God. And the intellectual intimacy is like agreeing on the radio station, right? Having those shared interests.
And even though it's difficult to talk about with friends and neighbors, maybe there is help available. And one of the things that you discover is maybe you're not very considerate in sexual intimacy, or maybe you do things that so anger the spouse that they feel like that if there is sex, it's like obligation or duty type of sex, and you hate that, but maybe you put a person in that place. Also, if you don't want to look at it, well, what happened? Why is that? And could it be something other than your partner that has generated that aversion in there? All sorts of things to look at. We've got counselors that can help you with that, and you learn about that in our Intimacy in Marriage weekend. We're also doing a webinar on sexual intimacy for women. They're a guide for them, and one of our great female speakers is doing that. But right now, if you want to join us, here's the phone number, 1-800-229-3000. 1-800-229-3000. We'll be back after this.
We all face days where life throws us a curveball and our routines or plans get disrupted. Things we wanted to do are forced to take a backseat to the unexpected demands of the day. If you normally listen to New Life Live on a radio station, well, you might not be able to that day. And on these hectic days when you're feeling stressed or frazzled, hearing the sound of counsel given on New Life Live is just what you need to navigate the unexpected things of life.
Every time I'm troubled or I have a problem, I'll cut on New Life, and there's always something that is said that is helpful to me.
By listening, I have learned more than I can ever express about how God wants me to live.
Download the New Life app for the easiest way to listen wherever you are and at a time that's convenient for you, or watch the show on our YouTube channel. You can even subscribe to our podcast from your favorite podcast provider. You never have to miss a day of New Life. Wherever you are, we are. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
We're back. And by the way, that webinar that I was mentioning, it's Thursday. It's free. And Laura Mangan McDonald is the one that's doing that at 1 p.m. Central Time. Doesn't cost you a thing. And, of course, she is the person that does our Restore workshop and also Intimacy in Marriage. But, Alice, you had a comment you wanted to make before we moved on.
Well, we just want to acknowledge that when a marriage is struggling and is in dire straits, sexual intimacy may be one of the most difficult topics to talk about. But the solution to the overall health of the marriage, it really is the talking part of it. And you may be far from being able to fully engage physically with your spouse, but the willingness to start opening up, talking about the difficulty is what moves the whole marriage in the right direction. And I want to comment on motherhood in particular, because that complicates the physical intimacy and the emotional intimacy of the marriage. Because kids need almost all of our attention and energy. They certainly ask for all of it and more. And we have to be cautious not to give everything to our children. We have to reserve some of that energy and attention for our spouse. But because our kids' needs are so high and so loud, it can be that we invest everything in our children to the detriment of our marriage. So we women need a lot of support and encouragement in this area because we're balancing so many needs of the family at one time.
Mm-hmm. Very good. It never works when one person's married to the job, the other person's married to the kids, and then kids go away, job goes away, everything goes away, but they never even had much of a marriage to each other. Really important that we take a second look at what we're doing and how in the world did we get there.
Well, and,
all right.
And to speak to dads on that note there, Alice, right? And that's why it's important for men just to not come home and expect to have physical intimacy when they haven't had emotional intimacy with their wife throughout the day. They haven't cultivated that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. We're going to go to the phones here, 1-800-229-3000. And I do think that when you come to one of our events, you'll find it not embarrassing the way we approach sexual intimacy. All right, let's go to, I believe it's Betty from Tucson, Arizona. Hello, Betty. You are on with Alice and Mark and Steve. How you doing?
Well, I guess I'm okay. I just wanted to say that the problem without, really identifying myself that much.
Okay.
So
no problem with you not identifying yourself.
Okay. So I told whoever answered the screener, I have a sister who's has always been attracted and interested in my husband. I didn't realize it at first and just kind of didn't want to see it or something. And he's flattered by it. He was taken by it, I think, too. It just kind of pulled in. But they weren't, found by my brother, not necessarily having intercourse, but having, kissing and hugging in ways that probably not appropriate. So
probably not appropriate. I don't think his kissing and hugging like you're describing there that's appropriate. But go ahead. Oh, that must have been so painful for you.
Yes, of course. So it's been a while, and I've kind of managed to avoid her. I live in a different state. I've allowed texting and talking, but it's only because I don't want to be one of these people that never talks to my relatives. But now I see that that might have been a mistake, because now she wants to come visit, and and then she may want to move here. I don't know. I'm having some struggles with all of that.
Well,
but I don't know how
did
to
you ever
handle it.
address it? Did you ever address it with her that your brother saw them kissing, hugging romantically, and that's why you really did not want her to visit in your home? Have you ever talked about it?
Well, I mean, my brother actually called me on the phone and told me about it, and they called right afterwards saying, "Oh, it was just blah blah blah. It wasn't anything, or something to defend it or minimize it."
And what was your response to that?
Well, I think I was a little stunned by everything, and
Sure.
I made my feelings known to my husband.
Good.
I didn't really bring it up so much with my sister, and I know that she would just minimize it and deny it and act like it was no big thing and that, and yet, there's just been this series of things that have indicated to me that her interest is not in my best interest, and her
Right.
interest is not in me.
Okay. Well,
so-
with you having said that, I'm going to start with Alice and then go to Mark, and if they don't give you the right answer, I will follow up with what I'm thinking here. Alice, go ahead.
Betty, what a quandary for you, as you're trying to maintain a little bit of relationship with your sister, but she's a risk to your marriage and you can't trust her. Tell us, what did your husband do to repair the damage? He minimized at first. Did he do anything better later?
Well, he said he wasn't interested, and then, it's been quite a while. It's been a while. It's just only recently that she wants to come and visit. We haven't had any real contact since it's been a couple of 3 years. And anyway,
And it sounds like your husband hasn't done anything in a structured, remorseful way to reconcile with you about this and to strengthen your marriage.
well, he and I have been married 51 years. We just celebrated our 50s. So it's not as though I haven't ever really, I think that's the closest he's ever come to being unfaithful. So it was just hurtful because it was my own sister too.
Oh,
Not
yes,
that it
Betty. Oh.
Well, that makes me wonder if it is the only time, because that's pretty unusual that a person cannot control themselves when a sister-in-law comes onto them, or they come onto the sister-in-law. Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say here, Steve. It sounds like this is the only one that you know about here, Betty. It sounds like, I know your question here really is about your sister, but I think the first relationship to address here is the one with your husband, because it sounds like there's just really been this cover up, sweeping under the rug really of what's happened, and regardless of whether he says, well, that's all that happened, you don't really know that. And so
right.
Whenever there's a betrayal, right, couples, I believe, really need to go to betrayal recovery and see a counselor who is skilled in that. And typically in betrayal recovery, what usually happens at the, very close to the beginning is something called a full disclosure happens, where the unfaithful spouse will actually write down and fully disclose everything to the betrayed spouse. And I think that's probably where you need to start, because you've been married 51 years, but longevity doesn't necessarily equal intimacy or depth of relationship. Yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, I want to full disclosure. I was really the one that betrayed in the beginning. In the beginning of the marriage, I was not faithful, and I did disclose it, and I disclosed everything. And it was at a ministry for marriage. And anyway, so I don't know. He does like attention from women. He is very friendly with women in very gregarious, but I've not known him to really have anything more than what I'm just describing with my sister.
Okay, so
and it could be that he was trying to get back at me or something. I mean, he never left me. So
how long ago was your affair? How long ago was your affair, and how long ago was his involvement with your sister?
Well, mine was in the first few years of marriage.
Uh-huh. And when did the sister thing happen with him?
Well, that was more, I guess, within the last 5 years.
Okay. So, here's the thing. Your affair needed to be dealt with, he needed to grieve, and it's hard, so hard. But nothing you did would justify, well, first of all, him doing anything, and then also your sister. And you called about your sister, and I think before we get to the sister, you really need to ask your husband to fully disclose any kind of unfaithfulness other than your sister. Any kind of appropriate kissing and hugging, as he called it, with your sister. Because it's not appropriate to kiss and hug to the degree your brother sees it and says, man, that is not right. Okay, but here's what I think you ought to do about your sister. I think if she wants to come and visit, you need to call her, and you need to say, hi, we've never talked about this, but you and my husband tried to minimize it, but it was inappropriate, what you did. And for that reason, I would prefer that you not come and visit. You and I don't have a close relationship that would kind of justify a visit, and I don't want you involved with my husband. That's just saying the truth. That's just letting it be a reality versus them control the direction of things, your thoughts, feelings, any of that. Alice, what are you thinking?
Well, Betty, you pointed out that both your sister and your husband minimized what they did, and I agree with you. I want to gently turn your perspective to, I think you also minimize what your husband did. And there's just a natural tendency of all of us. We want to get along. We want to go along and get along. We want to forgive and forget. And if you're also guilty of infidelity, I think it adds to minimizing what your husband did. And Betty, I just want to give you permission. It's okay to be upset with your sister and your husband. It's okay to have requirements and the need for structured intervention to do repair work, because your marriage needs that. And I agree with Steve. It's all right if you don't want to see your sister, if you're not ready to see her because she hasn't acknowledged and done the work on your relationship with what she did with your husband.
Yeah,
she hasn't. She hasn't done any work on it. In fact, I think she's always. We're from a very dysfunctional family, my sister and I, and my brother's deceased, and it was just. She's always wanted my life. She's always coveted my life, everything about me, everything in me, my husband, everything, and I'm just struggling as a Christian. Am I supposed to be sharing my husband? Am I being too possessive of my husband? And I'm just struggling with, it looks like I won't have a relationship with her because she's always going to want to move in. She may move here and she wants to be taken care of by me. I always took care of her. And I just can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I have other responsibilities that are, weighing on me. And I'm 75 years old. I need somebody to take care of me. And it won't be her. She won't do it.
Yeah. And so all the more reason that you should tell her what you think, feel, and that you don't want her to move there before she moves there. I mean, you really need to be upfront. You call her up and say, hey, you want to come visit? Well, I don't think you should come visit, because the last time you and my husband...
So I'm not being unchristian. I'm not being unchristian by doing this.
No, in fact, you're preventing temptation. You're actually intervening for them, so it's not a temptation. And you're standing up for what's right. And many times we acquiesce or we're passive, and that's not being Christian when we're passive, allowing something evil to happen. I have another comment on this when we come back, and then we'll go to Sylvester. We'll be back.
Our marriage was just so toxic, and just so many simple interactions that turned into conflict. And so we signed up to participate in the workshop.
This is Steve Arterburn. Our Intimacy in Marriage workshop examines the various types of intimacy, spiritual, emotional, and physical, as well as the challenges of experiencing true intimacy.
The tools that we received from the Intimacy in Marriage workshop were tremendous. It was so much that we were able to take and utilize and actually come back and apply.
Don't settle for a miserable marriage or even one that's just okay. It's possible to have that great marriage you always wanted.
The next Intimacy and Marriage workshop is July 28th to the 30th in Washington, D.C. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE to find out more, or go to newlife.com. 1-800-639-5433.
Best decision we could have ever made. There's no price that we can put on having healthy marriages.
Chris Williams on coaching.
Oftentimes I get asked, what is the difference between therapy and coaching? The biggest difference between the two is that a therapist is going to be looking for a diagnosable mental health condition, whereas a coach is going to look at a particular issue and help a person work through that.
If you need a coach, call New Life today and ask about the New Life Coaching Network. Our coaches have been trained and screened with the same intensive process we use for our network counselors.
If you're looking at an issue in your life that you just kind of want to change, whether it be your weight or leadership or other areas of behavioral patterns, check out coaching. There can be some really, really helpful things for you.
Take control of your life and take action to achieve your goals. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433 and talk to us about getting a New Life coach. 1-800-NEW-LIFE. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a question or a comment, call toll-free 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
That is our number, 1-800-229-3000. Mark, you have a final comment here.
Yeah, and I hear what you're struggling here with, Betty, is because you're trying to figure out, like, is this the Christian thing to do? And what I want to say to you is that forgiveness and reconciliation, those two are not the same thing. Oftentimes reconciliation does go along with forgiveness, but not all the time. If somebody is unrepentant, if somebody is unsafe, then sometimes the best thing to do is to not reconcile with that person for your sake and for the sake of others. And in this case, your husband and your marriage.
We can mistake people-pleasing and being nicey nice as that's the Christian thing to do.
Right.
But, Betty, it's speaking the truth in love. And sometimes it's a very disruptive truth that we need to share, even with a family member. And that is Christian to do so.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus spoke the truth, and he irritated a lot of people at times. And other times, other people walked away from him, like the rich young ruler. And the Bible says he still loved them and allowed them to walk away.
Well, I've said this many times that I don't know of any book on solutions that have the answer being passivity. Now, there's restraint, intentional restraint sometimes because you don't want to escalate something, but passivity is not the way to do it. And so I'm glad that you called, and I'm trying to well, let me just send you this little book on Take Your Life Back, and I think it could help you. I hope so. And I would tell you, to go to Restore or get him to go to Every Man's Battle just to be sure it's taken care of, or intimacy in marriage. All those might be really good things for you to consider. 1-800-229-3000. That is the number to call us right here. And again, I'll mention that free webinar. It's 1 o'clock Central Time, and that is Thursday, I believe. Is that right? Is that what I said? Yeah, Thursday. Okay, let's go to Sylvester, Dallas, Texas. Listens on Sirius XM. And hello, Sylvester. How are you today? And thanks for calling us.
Hey, pretty good, fellas. How y'all doing today?
Doing okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, I was just calling. First-time listener. Just kind of happened to switch stations, and I heard you guys, and you guys were talking about emotional intimacy.
Yeah.
I'm wanting to see if you can guys talk to me a little bit more on that. Me and my wife have married 10+ years. We have 2 daughters, 9 and 2, and she was saying something like, she puts a lot of more attention with the kids. Of course, they need that. I try to help out whenever I can. If I get home early, I'll cook, I'll clean and whatnot.
Good.
But I guess I'm not familiar with this emotional intimacy that I can help out more towards her. And if you guys can kind of elaborate a little bit more on that.
Okay. I would start with the word curious, because it's a word that I can understand. And that would be, Sylvester, that whenever you're with her, think of that word curious. And what you'd be thinking about is just saying to yourself, I'm curious about what her day was like and what she experienced. And I'd be curious enough to not just ask her what happened today or how did it go. She's going to tell you that, but then go the next level and ask her, well, how did you feel about that? Or how do you feel now? But curiosity on the part of a spouse is it just makes you feel cared for and loved and appreciated. So I would start with that word, and then Alice and then Mark, what would you say to him?
Sylvester, your smile, your question put a huge smile on my face. You sound like a very considerate husband, and you sound like a servant leader for your family, that you really try to help your wife in all kinds of different ways. So I appreciate
your... I try to think that I do.
I can already tell just by what you have said so far. And I would add that emotional intimacy is staying aware of your wife's internal state, her thought life, and her heart state by doing what Steve is suggesting, by asking her questions. Is your wife the kind of person that's open to letting you know what's going on inside of her if you're to ask gently?
I don't think so. I think she's more reserved to things like that. I try to have her. It just sometimes I feel like she bottles up a lot. Doesn't talk about things, and then all of a sudden we just kind of blow up on each other, and it's usually about being intimate with each other. I feel like over the years I've been pushed back. Like I like to think about it like on a totem pole. I'm like the very bottom of the totem pole now as far as where I'm at with her. I always feel like she puts work and the kids, and then I'm like the very last one. Now my mother stays with us, so I try to take time and spend time with my mom. I try to make time for our girls, and then I try to make time for her as well. And I just feel like I get the short end of it. It's just kind of get pushed to the side, or like it's like I should just not make it a big deal, or like to her it's not.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Sylvester, do you both work outside of the home?
Yes.
Okay. We're coming up to the break, but we will come back with some suggestions about how do you develop emotional intimacy with a reserved spouse who's somewhat resistant to it. So we can help you with that, Sylvester.
All right. 1-800-229-3000. We really want to help you here. And sometimes the help is not necessarily because you have a problem, but maybe the other person has a problem. And if you can look at it a little differently, well, then things start to change. 1-800-229-3000. If you've never gone to the website, if you've never downloaded the New Life Live app or the New Life app, just go to the App Store. It's right there. It doesn't cost you anything. You can hear the program anytime.
For most of my life, I've been dealing with an opiate addiction.
Why is opioid addiction quickly becoming one of our nation's biggest killers? Maybe it's because it isn't only those who are addicted who are in denial.
We did what I see so many parents do, is it can't be an addiction. There's something medically wrong.
It's impossible to solve a problem when you don't know what you're up against, and families will try to find any explanation except the one that will put them on the right path.
Alcoholism and drug addiction is a family disease. It doesn't affect just the individual.
If someone you love is abusing painkillers, know what you're up against. It's time to admit it's addiction and seek treatment. Call us today at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. We have Christ-centered partner treatment centers around the country. Call 1-800-639-5433 or visit us online at newlife.com.
We just made a decision. We will do whatever it takes.
1-800-NEW-LIFE.
I was sort of vaguely familiar that the 12 steps had some origination in the Bible. I found Life Recovery, and one of the things I liked so much was that it had such a broad appeal. It wasn't limited to just alcohol or drugs, that it was addressing a wide range of problems.
At New Life, we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country. They take place online, in conference calls, and in person. And if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. We have startup materials, leaders' guides, CDs, Bibles, and more, all with discounts available for groups. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE and ask for Terry Ward. The 12 Steps have long been a great help to people in recovery because much of the 12 Steps' power comes from the fact that they capture principles clearly revealed in the Bible.
The 12 steps is really a pattern for all of us as Christians.
Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433. We're glad you joined us for New Life Live. To be a part of the program, call 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
We're back, and Sylvester wants to know how to be more intimately involved with his wife emotionally, and he said, "What is that?" And so let's start with you, Mark. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, so it's a really brave question, Sylvester. I'm so glad that you asked it. I think that there's probably a lot of other men who are listening who want to know the answer to this question here. And so emotional intimacy, if we think about it here, right, it involves, obviously here, emotions, right? And so we really need to have a language developed for emotions. And so you can do that yourself here. A great way to do that is to, find a feelings word list and to be able to look through that and reflect upon that. Milan K. Yurkovich on their website, howwelove.com, they have a great list called the soul words on there. And really it's just a prompt to reflect on what it is that you might be feeling, because for us to be able to engage others emotionally, we really need to develop that emotional intelligence for ourselves. So we really need to be reflecting upon our own internal states to do that. And once we do that and we develop this language for emotion, I'm going to give you here maybe not a formula, but just a way to engage your wife here. And here's the way that I like to do it, is to make an observation. Start with an observation, and I like to say, I noticed that, and then insert what behavior it is that you see, and then follow that up with, I wonder if, and then insert what emotion that you might think that she might be feeling. And I think if you can learn to start conversations that way, it leads the person to either affirm what you're saying or correct it and tell you what emotion it is that they might be feeling instead.
Yeah. Alice, what do you think?
Sylvester, you might also lead with this emotional intimacy idea that you're just learning about here today on the radio, to bring that to her, to see if it sparks a little bit of curiosity. And rather than making sex the main request, I would encourage you to be vulnerable about your desire to be closer to your wife in general and your desire to know what happens inside her mind and inside her heart. And Sylvester, you might need some structured professional help to be able to help her open up. I would guess there's a strong history within her that leads to her being reserved. Probably she's been hurt historically by other people, and it might make it tough for her to let her guard down with you. Mentioning that your mother lives in the home certainly complicates things under your roof. To have her mother-in-law right there might make it tough for her to be physically intimate with you, maybe even to open up about how she's feeling. It might be a real burden to her. So I'd also have you get curious about how that impacts her. And I think our Thursday workshop would be great for both of you to attend together. Maybe you'd give her the invitation of, hey, I know I'm part of us blowing up over our lack of intimacy or our struggle with intimacy. What if we both went to this workshop so I can learn how to talk to you better about it? Because I don't think I'm doing a great job lately on this.
Also, I think sometimes just asking or say, it seems like you are depressed today or you're frustrated. Is that true? To guess at the emotion and let them clarify is a good thing for them to do. And you can do that all through that webinar that Alice is talking about. Well, that seems, you can say, that seems like that bothered you, angered you, whatever. Is that true? And then you start communicating about feelings, and the feelings tap into the personhood that's there, the being part. Alice?
There's such an important reason that the Bible warns against long periods of sexual abstinence within a relatively healthy marriage, because it does start to deteriorate. And ladies, we've got to be aware and cautious of our husband's needs, especially if we have a decent husband who's working hard to serve the family. Whether or not we feel like engaging with physical intimacy, our husband needs it. And so it's something for us to challenge ourselves, to pray about, to get support from other women, that we have to step out of our comfort zone to try to love our husband well in this area. And it's certainly not easy to do in seasons of life when your children are young and there's a lot of calls on your attention.
At our Every Man's Battle, we tell men it isn't a need. No one's ever died because they didn't have sex, but it's a desire. And I think desire is a great word. Do you want to fulfill his desire or not? And if not, that means there's something that needs to be done. And that's the main thing, is if it's not working and if it's not enjoyable, then just call us and let us find some help for you. And that could make all the difference in the world. Then you're not avoiding something that a marriage really, I think, grows deeper and deeper the more comfortable the sexual intimacy is. All right. I'm glad you called, and I'm going to send you a book called How We Love, Milan and Kay Yurkovich, and it'll help you, I think, understand who you married and maybe even why you did so. Glad that you called. Let's go to Joy, New York, New York, listens on the podcast. Glad that Joy does that. And Joy, welcome, and how you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing well. What about yourself?
Doing okay, and I like being on with Alice and Mark. They're a little above average on the IQ. So how can we help you today? What are you thinking about?
Okay, well, my call is for my granddaughter. She's 20 years old, and I think the best way to say it is she's like in a deep state of depression.
Okay.
And it breaks my heart as I was listening, as the cast is on, and I was listening to a part of the commercial, and it said something about not being able to help. I feel like I'm in a place where I can't help her. I can help her, but I don't have the proper resources. And I said, I'm like a grandmother who will stop the world so that she can get on and find her place in it. And it breaks my heart to see how broken and sad she is. I don't know what else to do. I want to help her.
Okay. Well, I think when you see somebody depressed, if you really care about them, most people do. They want to help, and it's so difficult. You can't cure it, but you can sure help it. Mark, your thoughts on
Joy,
this?
is there a reason why your granddaughter's depressed?
What can I say? Young people issues that you go through, like high school years, and bring it into this part of your life. She said to me she felt like a failure. Something to do like work. She don't hold on to jobs. I'm not sure why. And I do believe some of the things she's going through, she won't tell me. Oftentimes you can speak to a stranger better than you can speak to someone who you think might judge you, even though she know I love her.
Yeah.
That's why she won't tell me some things, because she knows the love I have for her. She might think that I'm disappointed in her. So from teenage years up to now, so I think it's a lot to do with that.
Yeah. I just wondered if there was something significant that had happened in her life, and maybe there is, and maybe you don't know about it. And
right.
Yeah, and it can be hard because a lot of times it is difficult to talk a person out of depression. And I really appreciate that you're a caring grandmother. What might be helpful is if maybe you can help direct her to be able to talk to somebody other than yourself outside of the family. Maybe a professional counselor might be able to help her, and she may open up to that person to be able to kind of process through and talk about maybe some wounding that she's had that's leading to this depression.
Yeah, you could tell her, I know that talking to someone about what's deep inside can really help. And I understand that it might be difficult for you to share everything with me. That's why I'd like you to go see this person I found that really does a great job with people your age and with depression. And that's probably your best chance that she would say, yeah, okay, I'll go talk to them.
Do you think she'd go, Joy, if you encouraged her?
Well, I did. I gave her a telephone number of a minister who I do know, and she actually is certified, I believe, now as a counselor. Someone who I know, and I would trust her in their care.
Okay.
Is making that connection. But I told my granddaughter, the minister told me to tell you to call her. I know you have to reach out yourself when you want help.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to take her. I will do what I need to, or what I can do. And she is willing.
Okay. Let me just say something, though. Sometimes people need someone to make the appointment for them. They're literally just stuck. And sometimes we need to help them get there because they just can't do it. 1-800-229-3000. Come back for our final segment, and I'll tell you the title of what I'm talking about to Club New Life this week. Longest title I've ever had on a talk.
It had become very apparent that some of the things I was involved with were taking over my life.
In today's world, men are barraged with inappropriate content and images all day, every day. Some say that certain behaviors are just no big deal. It's just part of being a guy. But it's simply not true. It's a battleground for every man, and the opportunities to fail are everywhere. New Life's Every Man's Battle workshop can help.
After 7 years, just one weekend, a completely changed man.
For over 20 years, New Life Ministries has been helping men regain their integrity and purity through their one-of-a-kind Every Man's Battle workshop.
He said, I think this is something that every man should go to. Married, dating, it was definitely life-changing.
Now the workshop is coming to Dallas, Texas, August 4th to the 6th. Don't wait for him to call. To find out more, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE or go to newlife.com.
I just can't say enough of what New Life has done for our marriage.
1-800-NEW-LIFE.
I've been listening to New Life for many years, gone to a few workshops. I want to support a ministry that helps people connect with God and with others and gives them the tools to help transform their lives.
You can help New Life Live stay on the air by joining Club New Life today. When you sign up to support us monthly through Club New Life, We'll send you the new member thank you gift of all 8 100-day devotionals, including 100 Days of Healing, 100 Days from Freedom from Shame, and 100 Days of Freedom from Anger. There are also ongoing benefits like the monthly Club New Life CD or download, access to the Club New Life video library, quarterly resources, free shipping on purchased resources, discounts on workshops, and quarterly online meetings with Steve. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Support Club New Life, and together we can help hurting people find help and hope in life's hardest places. Call 1-800-639-5433 to join Club New Life today. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
We're back. And anything else you, Alice, or Mark want to say to Joy? I'm going to send her Healing is a Choice. I think it would be great for her daughter to read that. The 10 choices you can make. Whether you're ever physically healed, there are 10 choices we can make to usher in whatever level of healing can occur.
I just want to say that there's such value to empathic presence, and you ooze empathic presence, Joy. And whether or not your granddaughter takes advantage of that, knowing it's available, your listening ear, is so much more effective than any advice or fixing we attempt to do. Empathic presence.
Yeah, that sounds pretty impressive and empathic to me. All right, Joy, we're going to get Healing is a Choice to you. If you're a member of Club New Life, we are doing our monthly or quarterly Zoom, and here's the talk. It's on the 13th, it's Thursday, and it's at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. The value of knowing your history. Let's see, where's the rest of that? Okay, because I forget. Understanding your traditions, transforming your habits, and leaving an inspiring legacy. 4 things we're going to talk about. I hope that you will be inspired by those 4 things. By the way, I hope you'll be inspired to support this ministry. We really need your help. We hope and pray that this is valuable to you and that you appreciate it enough that you will be one of our great supporters. We have a New Life task notepad that we will send you. We invented it ourselves. That's why it's called the New Life task notepad. And it's our way of saying thank you for a support gift of any amount. And then Intimacy in Marriage is in D.C. July 28th. Every Man's Battle, August 4th in Dallas. And Lumina, this wonderful, truth-saturated, Bible-inspiring event at Museum of the Bible for women. You can find out about it at luminawomen.org. It's a great thing to bring a girlfriend or 10 and experience this. Well, it just engulfs you with God's truth through visiting the museum and then the great speakers that we have. You will not be disappointed. 1-800-229-3000. And tell you what, let's do. Let's go and talk with Grace. Missoula, Montana is where she's calling from. And let me just say this. If you're on, Mary, if you hang on, we'll get to you on this next program. But Grace, welcome to New Life. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing okay. How could we help you today?
So I called you guys a couple years ago about my husband and I. We were in counseling, and there was some discussion that the counselor and I had about my husband being possibly borderline Asperger's. We continued through 5 months of counseling and just couldn't get anywhere. He got more defiant. So it ended up leading in my leaving. I'm a very strong Christian woman, very difficult. Went through a lot of counseling afterwards. And my question is I've read a lot of books about Asperger's, possible narcissism, didn't even know what that word was until now. And I listen to your program a lot, and it always makes me sad and guilty that I left, and yet my Christian counselor and I were constantly talking about how the truth will set me free, and I have so much truth, and I'm free until I listen to your program, and then the oh my gosh, if we would have done this, maybe it would have worked, and I'm super empathic. He's on the total opposite end of, like I said, possible Asperger's, so it was hard, and I guess my question is, I don't know how, when I listen to programs like yours, how I can work through that on my own accord of that guilt or shame and sadness that I feel for a failed marriage. When I tried everything.
Grace, are you still in individual counseling?
Every once in a while, yeah. It's been a couple years now, so in the process of 5 months of marriage counseling with a Christian counselor where he felt it was just husband repair and was very resentful. After we left counseling, 3 weeks later, my mom died of Alzheimer's. And in that time, I also found a 2-page list of issues that he had about me, which were very, things like I read my Bible too much. He just didn't like who I had become.
So Grace, as we're just running down on time, the frequency with which this comes up means that there's something unresolved about it for you that still needs attention. And part of your work will be deciphering, is it a worldly guilt you have? Or is it a godly sorrow, perhaps a combination of the two? Maybe there were things you should have done and didn't do. And so talking about it in individual counseling and probably with a group of women so that you get clarity about what God might be asking of you in this. And it might be more active grief, or there may be action that God is nudging you to take. But when that warning bell's going off as frequently as it sounds like it is, it means there's something inside of you that needs more attention, needs more work.
Yeah, I agree with that, Grace. And I think if you find a skilled counselor, they can help you do that. And I empathize with you here because, you're getting stuck on the past and you can't change the past. The only thing that you can do is move forward. And I wonder if you're where you're getting caught up is the difference between guilt and shame, right? Guilt is an act that we get stuck on, right? You had a failed marriage, but having a failed marriage doesn't mean that you're a failure. And that's the difference between guilt and shame. It's an action versus something, rooted in our personhood, right? I am a failure is a personhood statement. So I wonder if, again, like Alice is saying, getting into with a counselor to help you kind of dig deep and also to see where the roots of the shame come from before your marriage and in other areas. And I think as you learn to identify maybe the historical part of where that comes from, it might help you be able to resolve this piece of it for you.
Yeah. And the tough thing is, I think you were addressing this, Alice, there are only a couple criteria for divorcing in Scripture, and it's if you don't follow that, then we're not going to just wipe that away. We have to tell you, well, maybe there's something that you could have done. Maybe there's something you can do now, or maybe you just have to work through. For instance, let's say he's already married again. Well, then, it's asking forgiveness, seeking forgiveness from him and from God. And that grace is there. Leaving him is not the unpardonable sin. And some people would like to make it that. But you need to do what's right to make it right in your own heart and with anybody that's been hurt. That is just one of the things we believe in. Now, if you need some help, 1-800-229-1-800-NEW-LIFE is the number to call. 1-800-NEW-LIFE. And I hope and pray you will call. I hope you will support us. And I hope that we'll get to see you at one of our intensive. We have worked on these for years, making them the most valuable help in a weekend that you could possibly get. And we always look at our evaluations, always trying to improve everything that we do. 1-800-NEW-LIFE. You call us or go to newlife.com.
Thanks for listening. We hope this program has helped you by giving you insights for handling the challenges you face in your life. We want you to know that we're here for you, but you also need to know that New Life Live is a listener-supported ministry. To make your donation or to get any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433, or write to us at New Life Ministries, P.O. Box 1029, Lake Forest, California, 92609. Please join us again tomorrow for New Life Live.
Hi, thank you for watching New Life Live. You know, New Life Live is a Christian counseling program where we deal with the hard questions about life, relationships, kids, free choice, freedom of will, whatever. It's all right there on New Life Live every day, every weekday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. If you want to call into the live broadcast, you can find the schedule on newlife.com or click the social media link right below. You can see every episode of New Life Live on the New Life YouTube channel. Watch it with a friend, watch it later. Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell so you'll never miss another episode. So if you want to listen on the go, download the app. The link is right below. And I hope if you need some information, if you want to get some help, you'll call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. And I'll see you next time.